Alex had always been a curious man. His job as a deep space pilot had taken him to countless planets, but none had intrigued him as much as the one he was approaching now. The planet, hidden in the farthest reaches of space, had never been charted, and its coordinates were unknown to anyone. The only clue that led Alex there was an uncharted signal that had somehow crossed light years to reach his ship. At first, the signal had been weak, barely detectable. But over time it grew stronger, almost as if it were trying to get his attention. The curiosity that sparked in him grew into something much deeper. After much deliberation, Alex made the decision to follow the signal. His ship, the Nomad, glided through the stars, its engines purring like a great beast. The journey had been long, far longer than any mission Alex had taken in recent years. But there was something about this planet, something calling to him. He couldn't explain it, but he had to go. He had to see it for himself. The planet came into view, emerging from the vast blackness like a jewel, shimmering with life and green. Alex's eyes widened. It was beautiful. Lush forests stretched endlessly, covering the surface in thick, vibrant greens and oceans that sparkled beneath the light of distant stars. The beauty of it took his breath away. He adjusted the ship's controls, guiding it toward the surface. The landing was smooth, almost too smooth, as if the planet itself were welcoming him. The air was thick and warm, and Alex could smell the faint scent of flowers mixed with the rich, earthy aroma of the planet's forests. As he stepped out of his ship, his boots touching the soft, alien soil, a sense of wonder and uncertainty filled him. There was no sign of life. The planet, though beautiful, felt eerily quiet. No animals, no signs of civilization, nothing but nature. Alex moved cautiously, his senses on high alert. He wasn't sure what to expect, but something about the silence made his skin crawl. It was as if he were walking through a forgotten world, left untouched for centuries. As he ventured deeper into the forest, he began to hear faint sounds, distant voices, like whispers on the wind. His heart raced. Were they human? No, the voices were different, melodic, unlike anything he'd ever heard before. He followed the sound, pushing through thick branches and tall grasses, until he reached a clearing. There, standing in the center of the clearing, was a group of women. They were tall, with striking features, skin the color of polished ivory, hair that flowed like silk and eyes that glowed with an ethereal light. They looked human, but something about them told Alex they were anything but. They were elegant, regal even, with a grace that seemed otherworldly. Alex froze. He couldn't speak. He had never encountered anything like this before. The women stood still, staring at him with expressions that mixed curiosity, wonder, and caution. One of them, the tallest of the group, stepped forward. Her eyes locked onto his, and for a moment neither of them moved. She studied him with the intensity of a queen observing a stranger in her kingdom. "I am Captain Zira," the woman said, her voice soft yet commanding, like a melody that resonated deep within Alex's chest. "Welcome to our world." Alex's mouth went dry. He had no words to respond, only the overwhelming feeling that this moment was far more significant than he could understand. The women around Zira looked at him with the same mixture of curiosity and wariness, but there was something else in their gaze, something that suggested they had been waiting for this moment for a very long time. Zira tilted her head, her long hair shifting like a dark river behind her. "You are the first man we have seen in over a century." Alex's heart skipped a beat. "A century?" he repeated, his voice barely a whisper. Zira nodded. "Yes. A century. Our people have lived without men for that long, and we have forgotten much of what we once knew. We have become a society of women, with no knowledge of the men who once walked beside us." Alex was taken aback. A world without men? It sounded impossible, but the look in Zira's eyes told him it was the truth. He could see the weight of her words on her shoulders. There was sadness in her voice, but there was something else, something hidden beneath the surface. It was as if she had hoped, even prayed, that something would change. "What happened?" Alex asked, his curiosity piqued. Zira's gaze softened as she looked toward the horizon, her eyes distant. We don't know. It's a mystery. The men disappeared, vanished without a trace. We searched for them, but no answer ever came. The few men who were left were taken by the disease, and after that we were alone. The rest of the women stood silently, their eyes cast downward. Alex could feel their grief, their loss. This was a world broken in some fundamental way, a world that had lost its balance. You have come at a time of great need, Zira continued, turning back to him. We do not know why you are here, but we believe it is no coincidence. We have been waiting for a change, for something, or someone, to show us a way forward. Your arrival may be the sign we have been waiting for. Alex didn't know what to say. He felt both honored and overwhelmed by the weight of her words. I didn't come here to fix anything, he said softly, unsure of his place. I'm just a pilot. I stumbled across this planet by accident. Zira smiled faintly, as if she had anticipated this response. Perhaps. But you are here now, and that is all that matters. The silence hung heavy between them, filled with an unspoken understanding. The air around them seemed to thrum with a strange energy, as if the planet itself were holding its breath. Alex felt a shift, a pull, a connection that was both alien and familiar. For the first time, he wondered if he had stumbled onto something far more important than a simple mission. He had never expected to find himself in the middle of such an extraordinary situation. The women, so beautiful and unlike anything he had ever known, were now looking at him with a mixture of hope and desperation. They were waiting for something, and Alex realized they might believe he was the answer. Zira stepped closer, her gaze never leaving his. Will you help us, Alex? Her words struck him like a thunderbolt. Help them? He was a stranger in their world. He had no idea what they needed or what they were asking for, yet there was something in the way she looked at him, a plea, silent yet powerful, that made him hesitate. I don't know how, he said, feeling lost. I'm not sure I can help. Zira's expression softened. You do not have to have all the answers, Alex. Sometimes the mere presence of someone is enough to change everything. As Alex stared into her glowing eyes, something shifted deep inside him. He had come here out of curiosity, but now he understood there was more at stake than he could have ever imagined. He wasn't just a man lost in space. He was the key to something greater, something he was only beginning to understand. He took a deep breath. I'll try. Zira nodded, a small but grateful smile appearing on her face. That is all we ask. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the planet in a golden light, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that his life was about to change forever. The mystery of the planet was just beginning, and he knew that whatever came next would be nothing like he had ever experienced before. The days that followed Alex's arrival on the alien planet passed in a blur of discovery and confusion. He was shown around the alien city by Captain Zira and the others. The city was unlike anything he had ever seen before, built into the very landscape, with towering structures of metal and glass that seemed to grow from the earth itself. It was both advanced and organic, a perfect blend of nature and technology. The air was always warm and smelled of flowers, a stark contrast to the cold, sterile environments Alex was used to. As he spent more time with the alien women, Alex learned more about their society, their history, and the mysterious disappearance of the men. The women were not as united as they first appeared. There were factions within their ranks, each with its own views on what should be done about the future of their world. Zira, being the leader of the largest faction, often found herself at odds with others, especially Alara, a fierce and charismatic woman who had her own vision of how things should be. Alara believed that the return of men would bring chaos, that the delicate balance they had achieved over the years would be destroyed. She was vocal in her opposition to Zira's belief that the arrival of Alex might be a sign of something more, something that could restore their world to its former state. To Alara, the idea of relying on a man, any man, was a betrayal of everything they had fought for. Alex didn't know what to make of these divisions. He had arrived thinking he might simply explore and gather data, but now he was tangled in a web of politics and old wounds. The women, despite their beauty and grace, were not immune to the scars of their past. The disappearance of the men had left a deep void in their hearts, one that had shaped their entire culture. The women had become leaders, warriors, and scholars, taking on roles that were once shared with men. But as Alex quickly realized, this was not without its toll. Over the next few days, Alex began to study the planet's history, hoping to understand what had caused the men to vanish. Zira, sensing his curiosity, took him to the planet's archives, an ancient library hidden deep within one of the city's great structures. The library was vast, its walls lined with records and manuscripts, most of them in languages that Alex couldn't read. But Zira guided him to a section that contained records from the time before the disappearance. The oldest records were worn and faded. The days on the alien planet continued to pass, each one blurring into the next as Alex became more deeply entwined with the lives of the women. The city was bustling with activity, as the women worked on various projects, from advancing their technology to maintaining the natural harmony of their world. It was a society driven by purpose, yet it was also fractured in ways Alex had not expected. He had thought he would simply observe and perhaps document their way of life. But now, it seemed as though he was playing a part in something much bigger, something he didn't fully understand. The mysterious disappearance of the men, the prophecy, the environmental disturbances that had begun to affect the planet. It was all connected, and Alex felt more and more like a key piece in a puzzle he had no answers to. As the days went on, Alex spent more time with Captain Zira, learning about the intricacies of the world she led. She was strong, intelligent, and capable, everything Alex had imagined a leader to be. But beneath her composed exterior, there was something softer, something vulnerable that she rarely let anyone see. Zira was the leader of her people, the one they turned to in times of crisis, but she carried the burden of their survival on her shoulders. The disappearance of the men had been a wound that never fully healed, and now, with Alex's arrival, that wound was reopening. The women had learned to live without men, but the pain of that loss had never left. Alex realized that Zira, despite her strength, had never fully allowed herself to process the grief. One evening, as the two of them sat on the balcony of her quarters overlooking the glowing city, Alex spoke up. "You know," he began, "I've been thinking about what you said. The prophecy, the return of the men. I'm not sure I understand it all, but I do know one thing. I'm not the answer to everything." Zira turned to him, her face unreadable. "What do you mean?" "I'm just a man," Alex continued. "I didn't come here to fix anything. I didn't come here to change your world or bring balance. I just stumbled onto this planet by accident. I'm not some savior." Zira's eyes softened, and she studied him for a moment as if weighing his words carefully. Then she spoke, her voice calm but firm. "I never asked you to be a savior, Alex. No one did. But you are here, and that in itself is a sign. A sign that we are not meant to remain in the past forever. You may not have come to fix our world, but perhaps your presence can help us understand what comes next." Alex was quiet for a moment, contemplating her words. He had always believed in fate, but this felt different. It felt as though he had been chosen to be a part of something much larger than himself, and he wasn't sure if that was a blessing or a curse. "I didn't think I was here for any reason," Alex said, finally breaking the silence. "But now, I think I'm starting to see that maybe I am." Zira smiled faintly, and for a moment, there was a quiet understanding between them. It was as if they had both come to terms with the fact that the future of the planet, and perhaps their own futures, were tied together in ways they couldn't yet comprehend. But there was more to it than that. As the days passed, the connection between Alex and Zira deepened. It wasn't just the weight of their shared responsibilities that brought them closer, but something else, something neither of them had expected. There was an undeniable bond that formed between them, one that neither of them could ignore. It was subtle at first, like a quiet current running beneath the surface, but it grew stronger with each passing day. They began to spend more time together, talking about everything and nothing. Zira would share stories of her people's history, and Alex would tell her about Earth and the life he had left behind. It was in these quiet moments that Alex realized how much he had come to care for her. Zira wasn't just a leader. She was a woman who had suffered, who had carried the weight of her people's survival for too long. She was strong, but she was also deeply lonely, and Alex could see that she was beginning to trust him in a way she had not trusted anyone else. One night, after a long day of discussions with the council, Zira invited Alex to a secluded part of the city. The place was a hidden garden, a quiet refuge from the bustling world outside. The air was thick with the scent of flowers, and the soft glow of bioluminescent plants lit up the path ahead. It was a place where Zira could escape the pressures of leadership and simply be herself. They walked through the garden in silence, the only sounds the soft rustling of leaves and the distant hum of the city. Eventually, they reached a small clearing where a waterfall cascaded down a rocky cliff, the water sparkling in the soft light of the night. Zira turned to Alex, her eyes reflecting the glow of the water. "I come here when I need to think," she said quietly, "when the weight of everything becomes too much." Alex nodded, understanding. "I get that. Sometimes it's hard to carry it all." Zira looked at him, a flicker of something in her eyes, something more than just the connection they shared as two individuals caught in a strange situation. It was as if she were seeing him for the first time, not just as a man from another world, but as someone who had become an essential part of her life. "I never thought I would meet anyone like you, Alex," Zira said softly. "When I was younger, I believed the men were gone forever, that they were lost to us for good. I accepted that. But now you're here, and I don't know what that means for us." Alex's heart raced. There was no denying the growing feelings between them, no matter how much they tried to keep their distance. He had never expected this, never expected to find someone who made him feel this way. Zira was unlike anyone he had ever known, and the bond between them felt undeniable. "I don't know what it means either," Alex said, his voice low. "But I'm here, Zira, and I'm not going anywhere." She met his gaze, and for a moment, the world around them seemed to fade away. There was nothing but the two of them, standing in the quiet garden, the soft sound of the waterfall filling the silence. It was as if everything had led to this moment, this realization that they were connected in ways neither of them could fully understand. As the night wore on, Alex and Zira remained in the garden, talking, laughing, and simply being in each other's presence. The bond between them had grown stronger, and it was clear that whatever happened next, whatever fate had in store for them, was something neither of them could avoid. But as they walked back to the city, a new tension settled in the air. The environmental disturbances had been growing worse, and Alex could feel that something was coming. The mystery of the men's disappearance, the prophecy, and the strange alien force that seemed to lurk in the background. They were all connected, and Alex was beginning to understand that the time for answers was fast approaching. As they approached the entrance to the city, Zira paused and turned to Alex. "There's something I need to show you," she said, her voice serious. "Something I've kept hidden for a long time. I think it's time you saw it." Alex nodded, his curiosity piqued. "What is it?" Zira hesitated, her gaze distant. "It's the truth about what happened to the men, the truth about the enemy, who took them. I think you're ready to know." The weight of her words hung in the air as they entered the city. Alex didn't know what to expect, but he knew one thing for certain. His journey was about to take a darker turn, and the answers he sought would change everything. Alex felt a growing unease as the days passed. The connection he shared with Captain Zira had deepened, and yet he couldn't ignore the tension that simmered just beneath the surface of the women's society. It was clear that not all of the women agreed on the path they should take, especially regarding the return of men. Zira, who had welcomed him into their world, was the face of hope, but there were those who believed that his presence could spell disaster. Among them was Alara, a powerful and influential leader who stood in stark opposition to Zira's views. Alara was everything Zira wasn't: impulsive, driven by emotion, and deeply skeptical of the idea that men, especially Alex, could be a force for good. In Alara's eyes, the planet had flourished without men, and the return of even one could undo everything they had worked for. Alex had heard whispers of Alara's stance since his arrival. Her followers were not as numerous as Zira's, but they were vocal and fierce in their opposition. The women who sided with Alara believed that the balance they had achieved, the peace and stability they had worked so hard for, would be shattered if men were allowed to return to their world. It wasn't just about the men themselves, but the fear of what their return might mean, a return to the old ways, a regression of everything the women had built. One evening, after a particularly heated debate in the council, Zira invited Alex to meet her in private. The strain in her eyes was apparent as she led him to a quiet room deep within the city, away from the prying eyes of those who might question her decisions. "Alex," she began, her voice soft but carrying the weight of someone who had been shouldering a heavy burden for too long. "There are those among us who believe your arrival is a mistake. They fear what might happen if men return. They fear that it will undo everything we've built." Alex nodded, understanding the weight of her words. He had seen the way Alara and her followers looked at him, like he was an alien force, a harbinger of change that threatened to destroy the peace they had fought so hard to maintain. But what Zira was telling him now was more than just political disagreement. It was a deep-rooted fear that had taken. The tension in the city was palpable. After the council meeting, where both Zira and Alara had fought bitterly over their visions for the future, Alex could feel the weight of the planet's uncertainty pressing down on him. It wasn't just the political struggles he had to worry about. Something far more dangerous was brewing, something that neither faction could ignore for much longer. Alex had become a reluctant part of the women's struggle, caught between the hopes of those who saw him as a savior and the fears of those who believed he was a threat. He had tried to stay out of the political battle, focusing instead on the mysterious disturbances that were ravaging the planet. But he knew that time was running out, and if they didn't find the cause of the environmental upheavals soon, the planet might be beyond saving. Zira had kept him close, trusting him with the details of their most urgent mission. The disturbances were growing stronger, and strange phenomena were becoming more common. Sudden storms, earthquakes, and fluctuations in the atmosphere that seemed to be deliberate, almost as if someone, or something, was manipulating the planet from afar. "It's not natural," Zira had said, her voice heavy with concern. "We have no idea what's causing it, but we need to stop it before it's too late." Alex had spent countless hours alongside Zira and her most trusted advisors, combing through the ancient records of the planet's history, hoping to find something that would explain the growing instability. His heart pounded as he flipped through, page after page, desperate for any clue when something caught his eye. It was an old text, one that Zira had overlooked at first, hidden deep within the archives. "Zira, I think I found something," Alex called out, his voice breaking the silence in the room. Zira hurried over to his side, her eyes scanning the ancient manuscript Alex had uncovered. She reached out to trace the symbols on the page, her brow furrowing with confusion. "I've never seen this before," she murmured. "What is it?" Alex read aloud from the text, his voice steady as the words formed a chilling picture. "It's about an ancient race, a group of beings who once visited our world. They came from beyond the stars, not as conquerors, but as explorers. They shared their knowledge, their technology, and their wisdom with our ancestors. But there's something else." Zira leaned in closer. "What do you mean?" Alex's eyes narrowed as he continued. "The text mentions a powerful weapon, one that could manipulate the very core of a planet. It speaks of an energy that can destabilize the environment, causing the kind of disturbances we've been experiencing. And it says that the weapon was left behind, hidden, waiting for the right time to be activated." Zira's face went pale as the words sank in. "Are you telling me that these disturbances They're being caused by this weapon? Alex nodded. It seems that way. But the question is, who is activating it, and why? For a moment there was silence as the gravity of the discovery settled over them. The disturbances weren't just random natural disasters, they were the result of a deliberate act, and the thought that someone or something had been pulling the strings behind the scenes sent a shiver down Alex's spine. We need to find out who is behind this, Zira said, her voice firm. And we need to stop them before they can do any more damage. Alex agreed, but there was one more thing that nagged at him. The mention of the weapon in the ancient text. He had a sinking feeling that the answer to the disturbances might be closer to home than either of them wanted to admit. Later that day, as Alex walked through the city's bustling streets, a sense of unease washed over him. The air felt heavy, as though the entire world was holding its breath. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching him, waiting for the right moment to strike. As he reached Zira's quarters, he found her standing at the balcony, her gaze fixed on the distant horizon. There was a distant look in her eyes, as though she were contemplating something far beyond the present moment. Alex stepped forward, his footsteps quiet on the stone floor. "What's on your mind?" he asked softly. Zira didn't turn to face him right away, her eyes still focused on the horizon. "I've been thinking about the weapon," she said, her voice distant. "I've heard stories from my ancestors, but I never truly believed them. They said that when the men left, so did the weapon. It was hidden away, locked deep beneath the planet's surface." Alex frowned. "So, the weapon is buried here?" Zira nodded slowly. "Yes. And according to the text, it was meant to remain dormant, hidden, until someone came along who could activate it. But now..." She trailed off, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "Now, I'm not so sure. I think someone has already found it." Alex's heart raced. "You think the disturbances are coming from someone who has discovered the weapon?" Zira turned to him, her expression grave. "I'm not just thinking it. I know it. And if they've activated the weapon, it's only a matter of time before everything is destroyed. The power it holds could tear this planet apart." "Then we need to find it," Alex said, his voice filled with resolve. "We need to get to the weapon before they do." Zira's eyes met his, a flicker of hope flashing in them. "I think we need to work together. The only way we can stop this is if we unite everyone, the factions, the leaders. We can't afford to remain divided any longer." Alex nodded, understanding the gravity of what Zira was asking. She was right. If the planet's future was at stake, they couldn't waste time fighting amongst themselves. The disturbance was a threat to everyone, and they had to put their differences aside to face it. "I'll help," Alex said, his voice firm. "We'll bring everyone together." As they made their plans to unite the factions, Alex's mind kept returning to the idea of the weapon. The ancient text had described it as a powerful energy source, capable of devastating the entire planet. But who had activated it and why? Was it someone within their ranks? Or was it an outside force manipulating the women's society from the shadows? The answers were out there, hidden somewhere beneath the planet's surface, and Alex was determined to find them. The next morning, Alex and Zira gathered a group of trusted allies to embark on a journey to locate the weapon. They would have to navigate through dangerous terrain, hidden tunnels, and ancient ruins to reach the place where the weapon was said to be buried. It wouldn't be easy, but Alex knew that it was the only way to save the planet, and to stop the forces that sought to control it. As the group set out, Alex couldn't help but feel a sense of urgency. The disturbances were becoming more violent, more unpredictable. The planet's surface was starting to crack, and strange energy pulses emanated from deep within the Earth. It was only a matter of time before the weapon reached its full power, and when it did, there would be no turning back. Zira, ever the leader, took charge of the expedition, her focus unwavering. She knew the stakes, and she was prepared to do whatever it took to protect her people. But Alex could see the toll the journey was taking on her. The weight of leadership, the pressure of her people's expectations, and the fear of the unknown, it was all starting to wear on her. "We're almost there," Zira said, her voice steady despite the exhaustion that lined her features. Alex nodded, his gaze scanning the rocky landscape ahead. "We'll find it, and we'll stop it." But as they descended deeper into the planet's core, the ground began to tremble beneath their feet. The weapon was awakening, and with it, a new and more dangerous threat emerged from the shadows. The ground beneath Alex's feet rumbled with an intensity that sent a ripple of dread through his entire body. Zira and the others shared a quick glance, their expressions a mix of determination and fear. The tremors had become more frequent over the past few days, and now as they ventured deeper into the planet's underground caverns, they could feel the force of the weapon's power growing stronger. It was as if the planet itself was reacting to their presence, awakening to the danger that lay within. They had been traveling for hours through a series of dark tunnels, winding their way deeper into the heart of the planet. The air had grown thick, damp with the scent of ancient earth and the lingering presence of something older than time itself. The walls of the cavern were lined with strange markings, symbols that neither Alex nor Zira could decipher. These markings seemed to pulse with an eerie light as if the very stone was alive. "Do you feel that?" Zira whispered, her voice barely audible over the sound of the rumbling ground. Alex nodded, his heart pounding in his chest. "The weapon is close," he said, his voice tight with urgency. "We need to hurry." The group moved faster, each step carrying them closer to the source of the disturbance. The deeper they went, the more oppressive the air became. The temperature had dropped significantly, and the walls of the cavern felt as if they were closing in on them. It was as if the planet itself was trying to keep them out, warning them away from the heart of the danger. Finally, they reached a large chamber. It was vast, its ceiling stretching high above them, lost in the shadows. At the center of the room stood an enormous structure, a massive device that seemed to hum with power, the weapon. It was unlike anything Alex had ever seen. It was not a weapon in the traditional sense. It didn't look like a gun or a bomb. Instead, it was a complex array of interconnected machinery, glowing with an otherworldly light. Its core was a swirling mass of energy, constantly shifting and changing as if it were alive. Alex could feel the pull of the energy, the way it seemed to decay,